Hi folks, Mike here again. Happy New Year. I know it's been quite a while. Sorry for that. I was quite busy in my job, so thanks for tuning in again. Today we're going to talk about a question that I wanted to address or answer already 1 or 2 years ago, and finally I find the time to do so. It's the question that I read so often and I get asked so often is, do I really need an SSD, so an external solid state drive, for using drum sample libraries like Superior Drummer 3? Today I'm gonna demystify some of the stuff that's been around. I see a lot of bad advice giving to people. And in my video, I shortly explain how a drum sample library actually works and why you might save your money for other things than an SSD. So without further ado, let's jump into it. So maybe you watched this video because you just purchased Superior Drummer 3. You see there's a lot of gigabyte going on. It's drum sample library. Maybe you additionally purchased one of the expansion packs and you ask yourself, oh my gosh, now I have 300, 400 gigabytes of drum samples that need to be stored somewhere. And knowing that SSD external hard disk drives, or even internally when you're considering buying a new computer, are the fastest drives. So it makes sense to buy one of those SSDs together with the new software, right? The problem here is that a lot of people on the internet, when people asking, do I need an SSD or what kind of like hard disk drive do I need to store those samples, people immediately jump and say like, it's almost mandatory to use SSD. This is the best performance and you should go pull the trigger on that. Now, this video is, of course, assuming that we as musicians are usually on a budget. If money is no issue at all, of course, you can go and just buy $5,000 MacBook Pro 4 terabyte SSD internal drive. So if money is no issue, this video is probably not for you, so you can skip the video now. But usually people are on a budget and you just spend like $300, $350 on Superior Drummer 3 or any other drum samples software. And now you're asking yourself, my laptop hard disk drive is running out of space, so what I'm going to do? The problem is that what people still mess up when it comes to sample libraries, and it's not only for drums, you can talk about orchestras and piano sample libraries. What people don't understand is how the computer is built up and how the different components are used, especially when using a software like Superior Drummer. So let's stick to that example. You have three different components that you should watch for. First of all, of course, it's the hard disk drive or the disk drive or the storage, whether it's internal or external, whether it's a common hard disk drive that you know from the past or the modern flash drives or SSD. Then it's your RAM power. If you have 4 gigs, 8 gigs, 16 gigs, 32 gigs. And it's the processing power. So your Intel, if it's a dual core, quad core, octa core, whatever. So these three components are the main components you need to watch for. And what I see and what sometimes not annoys me, but makes me kind of like angry, that people always stick to the external hard disk drive and recommending, yeah, you should like buy another $300-400 external hard disk drive. Otherwise, you can't use Superior Drummer 3 or Stephen Slade drums or whatever. And this is simply wrong. So let's look at a computer, how it works, and let's compare the three components to, let's say, a common example like a big warehouse. So assuming your hard disk drive or your disk drive, whether it's internal or external, doesn't matter, is your warehouse. So it's the room, the big space where all the stuff, all the information, all the files are stored. So the size of your drive determines how big your warehouse is. And then at the end of the warehouse, you have an office, a little office where the actual work is being doing by humans or by whatever. So in the office, the work is doing. The size of that office, so how many people or how much work it can be done internally, is determined by the size of your RAM power, okay? And the power and the speed of your processor, like it's a single core, dual core, quad core, is showing how fast the work is being done inside that office. So now coming back to Superior Drummer or drum sample libraries, the moment you pick a kit, let's say you pick the per kit from Superior Drummer, and it loads up to 2, 3, 4 gigabytes. It takes a while for the computer to load the samples, but what's actually been doing is the computer is taking the samples, which are WAV files at the end of the day, or sound files, from your disk drive, whether it's internal, external, doesn't matter, into your RAM, and then you can work from there. So literally spoken, comparing to the warehouse, someone is going into that warehouse, is collecting all the samples that's been needed for in this case, this per kit, and all the samples are brought into the office to be further processed there. So the speed of your disk drive in this case, when we use that picture, it's just like determining how fast someone is running into the warehouse and is coming back. The moment the kit has been loaded into your system, it doesn't matter how fast or how big your external hard disk drive was or disk drive was. So, and the differences between an SSD and, let's say, a modern hard disk drive with 7,200 RPM is, in my case, I use an external hard disk drive connected with Thunderbolt, maybe some seconds. So of course, it's what you have to consider is it really worth for you to save 5, 6, 7 seconds when you load a kit to spend another $300-400 on an external SSD? I'd rather recommend checking if your RAM power is enough and if you have enough processing power. Secondly, what people sometimes often forget is the connectivity, or how your even new SSD is connected to your computer. If you run a 6 or 7 year old machine, which has just USB 2.0 connections, and you connect an SSD, of course, this SSD will load the samples fast. However, the USB 2.0 connection will slow down the warehouse example, someone bringing the stuff from the warehouse into the office, because that's the bottleneck. So in comparison, if you buy a new computer with USB 3.0 connections and just like a common hard disk drive, I probably say they are equally fast or close to equally fast. But the external hard disk drive is of course way cheaper than SSD. The third argument I'd want to bring is consider the fact that you probably won't stop just using the core library of Superior Drummer or Stephen Slade drums. You're gonna buy expansion packs over the time, which need more space. You're gonna buy another software like orchestras and piano samples. So you are quickly running into a situation where you're running out of space again, and you end up in buying another SSD external, and then you have already 2 disk drives connecting to your computer, or maybe even 3, because in the first place you couldn't afford to buy a 2 terabyte SSD, which is, I don't know, I will probably show up the price in my screen right now. So you see, it's maybe smarter to invest in more RAM or a faster processor when you're buying a new computer than just buying the SSD and thinking this will speed up your process using Superior Drummer, because this is technically simply wrong. So I just wanted to avoid that you guys have to spend too much money when you just spend $350 on a software like that, on a pro software, and you're now running out of budget and you cannot afford an SSD anymore. So there's absolutely no problem. I'm using Superior Drummer now for 4, 5, 6 years. I've always used a common external hard disk drive, and I never had the feeling that it could be way faster, because I concentrate on the power of my machine and not on the space or the, let's say, the speed of my external disk drive, which is for me just storage reasons. That's my take on external hard disk drives or for Superior Drummer. I know this video can cause a lot of hate because people will heavily disagree on this, but I just wanted to avoid that you spend too much money which isn't actually needed. If you have any questions on the topic itself, any comments, any critiques, leave a comment. Consider to subscribe, of course. Have a fantastic week making music, and thanks for watching. Bye bye.